Okay, so by the time this gets published, it's going to be considered old news. Yet, what I'm about to cover today, I'm not yet seeing get covered by the usual suspects that jump on these news cycles as soon as they're fresh. So if you're interested in learning something you're not seeing anywhere else and the way it's covered, then stick around, and you never know, there may just be a surprise that you'll be glad that you stuck around for.
We're about to be joined by the New South Wales Police Commissioner Mal Lanyon, and I want to get his reaction to what we saw in Surrey Hills last night when there were protesters outside Surrey Hills Police Centre chanting "F the pigs." So that's what they were hearing, the police, over and over again. F the pigs, F the pigs.
So that interview with the police commissioner, which I'm not going to play for you because you can look it up and you'll see just by the title how to find it. That's why I've left the title there. Is all about running cover for the truth of the natural rights violations that occurred and that have been occurring like 2020, 21, 22, through that whole COVID crisis. That just a repeat of the same thing. So there's a pattern in play here. I mean, it's been happening well before that, yet the populace still allows it to continue. And these are just invitations for people to say enough's enough. So this crowd that showed up, perhaps that's what they were saying, right? You think about it from your position as an individual. When have you ever sworn at someone and said F you when you've been treated with respect, dignity, honour, consideration, when all those things have been, looked after? When have you had that impulse? And now think about when you have had that impulse and it was too strong and you just needed to release it. Were you being treated respectfully, with dignity, with honour? Were your base needs for safety, were they preserved? Right? It's just really basic, right? So their job, these people, is to actually try and get you as the viewer to extinguish what your conscience knows as truth, because that's your highest faculty for truth discovery, and it can't be extinguished by any form of intellectual reasoning or what's otherwise known as rhetoric. So that's how to spin reality through the manufacturing of words that make it seem like what you're seeing isn't true. That's its job. And the way it's done is to fall back on that old chestnut of everything that's done is done in the name of your safety. So once you get into that position that things are done for your safety, you'll make all kinds of excuses. That's why they go to that one as a go-to. Right? So what the purpose of this video is for you to start learning how to trust in the living intelligence that knows how reality operates as it is, not how you're being programmed to see it operate. So it's making contact with that part of yourself that can't be extinguished, no matter what and how heavy pressure is piled on top of you. We're going to launch in with this little gem. Okay, so now you're going to hear with your ears and see with your eyes the individuals that use the first rule of Hate Club and how they apply it in real time.
Look, I mean, first of all, there's established processes for investigation relating to police conduct.
Okay, I'm going to decode what he just said in real, unadulterated truth language. He basically just said, we are the mafia and we've got processes in place to investigate ourselves to justify that we are right to do what we want. That's essentially what he said. Now, if you don't understand that and you're new to this information, let me break it down for you and see if it makes sense now. So the whole structure of governance was designed this way, that there is a head of state, and that head of state can delegate responsibilities out to others, but they need to be subordinated, those ones who get that responsibility delegated to them, to the head of state's coronation oath. So our head of state is supposed to be the king right now, not that that's actually really happening, and any branch that sits under that, so whether it be the constabulary, the military, the legislature, prisons, the judiciary, they are to be responsible to that head of state's coronation oath. And that coronation oath is that individual rights must be upheld at all times and can never be violated under no circumstances. So any legislation that's passed by these legislative representatives, which are not correct ones, they're actually political parties, which are just private members' clubs. And who do private members' clubs work for? Do they work for you? Or do they work for themselves and their concealed backers? So they've created a system where they've bypassed that and gone straight into self-authorizing legislation where they don't need to get that assent because they're not actually sitting under the correct authority that was created, so there could be a legitimate nation state. Now, the second part of that process is if the legislation passes into what is referred to as law, and here in Australia, passing legislation means being granted royal assent, and that is done through the representative of the head of state, which in Australia is called the Governor-General, except we have one massive problem that most people don't understand, and that is that the Governor-General cannot be selected by a private members club, hence political parties. They can only be elected by we the people or through the actual head of state themselves. The better option would be to be selected by the people, and we don't have that. So what does that tell you? That's why I said the mafia investigating itself. So that's not really legitimate, right? So then there's a second failsafe, which is the ultimate failsafe, and that is that every piece of legislation that's responsible for bringing someone a jury or a court needs to be tested for its moral quality by juries of the people, so your social peers. And if it's found that that legislation is in violation of your individual rights, then it gets annulled. If that pattern is in place, where it's the same piece of legislation before that is responsible for violating your rights, then eventually there's a process in place by which the public servants can actually be individually prosecuted for passing that legislation. Now, where do you see that actually happening in real time? Where is that option available? Why don't you know about that? Have a think about that. So that's why you're getting all this rhetoric, to make sure you never look at the true nature of how we govern ourselves and can never have our rights violated, no matter what the excuse. So those protections have been stripped away from us, and we've never known any other way of living. So most people just accept it and just carry on and think that's the best there is. And that's what their job is to make you believe this is the best there is. Now let's see what else he's got to say.
But just want to urge everybody to not look at a 10-second clip without the full context of the circumstances relating to those clashes yesterday evening. First of all, New South Wales Police tried everything they possibly could to avoid conflict last night.
Okay, so now I'm going to show you what he doesn't want you to take out of context, and you can decide for yourself. Let's see if it's just 10 seconds, shall we?
Taylor was among the protesters chased away from Town Hall.
And the other dynamic that I'd like to talk about is self-respect, as David brought up. These agents of the system of control, these agents of the state, they're devoid of self-respect. To be an order follower, there is no possibility that you could have any deeply ingrained self-respect in your psychology. It has to have been beaten out of you in order for you to follow orders unquestioningly. These people who David referred to them very rightly as press enter people, meaning they're a software program. You hit enter on the keyboard and then it executes. And they're much like that. They're robotic minds. But I call them order followers because this is, as David said, this is the group of people who historically, throughout the whole history of the world, is responsible for every single totalitarian regime that has ever existed. We call it a police state in the modern verbiage. We don't or a totalitarian regime, but a police state is named as such because it's named after the people who actually bring it into physical manifestation. And this is another thing that most human beings still don't understand. If you have the discussion with them, if there's an order being given by an order giver, and then the order is very, very evil, and it's then carried out by the order follower, not to say that both parties are not morally culpable and responsible to harm that results, but who's even more morally culpable? The one who just spoke the order out and said, carry out this action that I want you to carry out, or the person who actually does the action with their own body and brings it into physical manifestation in the world through their own behavior? I would say, and have been saying for many, many years, that the order follower is the bearer of the most moral culpability in that situation.
Okay, so there you have it. You can decide for yourself. Was that 10 seconds taken out of context, or is that a pattern of behavior? Okay, before I go on, just wanted to credit who you heard speaking through that video montage. That was Mark Passio in an interview that was done where he and David Icke met for the first time on the Vinnie Eastwood show. So I'm just leaving it up there so you can see what the title is if you want to search it yourself. It goes for about 2 hours. Okay, now we've got our friend Mr. Minns going next level. Let's hear it.
First of all, New South Wales Police tried everything they possibly could to avoid conflict last night, including making operational and open Hyde Park North down College Street for a prominent march in the city. That had been rejected for 7 days. Secondly, some of the protesters refused both the Supreme Court's decision, police direction, government legislation, and decided to defy police by breaching police lines.
All right, did you spot it? If you're not paying attention, it can slip past pretty quickly. So what did he say? He said avoid conflict. That's the critical word, conflict. He never said did everything in their power to maintain the peace or to preserve the peace. You see the two different energies? Now, why would he have chosen avoid conflict? Well, he gives it away as soon as he follows on from that sentence when he said that they were given an alternative route to go down. So what he just said then was the equivalent of, imagine if you're dying of dehydration, you're hospitalized, and the staff refuse to give you an IV drip, and you're going to die, and right next to your bedside there's a cup of water, and you muster the last amount of strength that you have to reach out and grab that water, and just as you're about to pick it up, you have it slapped out of your hand, and then get made out that you're the villain for trying to save your own life. Well, it's a similar situation where the people that are going and marching and having their voices heard, it's for the purpose of trying to save other people's lives. And they're being typecast as villains for doing that which is going to get the message out. So of course he knew there was going to be conflict. That was never going to be something that was going to be a negotiation. If you don't get to be part of the rules that you choose to live by, you're a slave. So he basically just told you as the listener, we get to dictate to you, and we decide what will happen to you if you don't do what you're told. That's exactly what he just said right then. So it's really important to spot that. Then what he does is he follows it up with the trifecta, right? He says, he uses the legislation, then he uses the Supreme Court, and then police. Now, all those three are a trinity of power. There is no separation of powers where they're all owned by the same structure. There's no division there. There's no independence there. They are all subordinated to who? The legislative decrees. So he's basically just using three arms of the one division and making it sound like they're all independent, and because there's three of them, then that's what makes it legit. And so if you don't understand how the correct structure is meant to work, then it's easy for you to fall in for these language tricks and also mind games. If you're missing the principle, that's when you can fall for it. So if you paid attention to the slides I showed you earlier, it shows you the difference. So hopefully you can go back and watch it again or take a screenshot, and you'll see the difference between when the people are in charge of the decisions that affect their lives, what that looks like. That's the one that said genuine rule of law. And when the people just have decisions imposed on them that they have no say over, well, that's the criminal system. And that's what he just basically told you is in operation.
And as senior police were confronted, they invoked specialist powers.
This area of George Street has been closed under the Major Events Act.
So there you have it, straight out of the horse's mouth. Did you hear what the reporter said? She said they invoked special powers. So right in front of your face, she's saying the quiet part out loud, that this whole structure of our, what would I call it, organised violation rests on magical thinking. That's what sits at the heart of it. This type of thinking has come straight out of a fairy tale, and the majority are participating in it, and they call themselves adults. So this is where it all sits. The moment you, as what you call yourself an adult, stops engaging in magical thinking and starts recognizing reality as it functions, this all ends. But that's going to require some serious work from you to start seeing reality as it truly functions. Otherwise, this is what you're contributing to. When plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men in a society, over the course of time, they create for themselves a legal system that authorizes it and a moral code that glorifies it. Okay, so I'm going to leave out commentary on the next two clips to see if you can spot how he does not talk about hate club by what he does talk about. And then at the same time, pay close attention to his body language while he does not talk about hate club.
Every speaker that got up at that protest tonight asked the crowd to march. They incited the crowd to march. And it was really something that was quite inflammatory, in fact. It got to the point that I believe the crowd really took part in some type of contagion of groupthink, where we saw ordinary people who really took part in something that I don't think they would normally do. And that is openly and willingly break the law. Out of context, I can understand why people looking at them might be quite concerned. Please understand they are small videos being put up, and I would say out of context of what was a rolling melee of violence and un-Australian and inappropriate behaviour tonight.
All right, as luck would have it, I just found this quote in the nick of time. So happy days, because it just basically nails what he just said while he wasn't talking about hate club. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about hate club. Here we go. This is a quote from Larkin Rose. The thieves, thugs, and murderers who declare their crimes to be legal, which every tyrant in history has done, will always brand any who resist them as criminals and terrorists. Did you not just do that? Only those who feel no shame at being labelled criminals because they have shed the myth of authority, which just means you no longer believe that someone can have legitimate power over you, that that's not a thing, have any chance at all of achieving freedom. So now I'm going to show you someone who's in the upper layers of hate club and the skill it takes to become one of those members, because you need to be much better at not talking about hate club. So let's have a listen.
I just want to remind people that police are community members just like all of us, and they went to our city last night to do their job, and they did a good job under incredibly difficult circumstances. That volatile crowd, I've been told by police, is one that they have not seen so aggressive before. However, they were able to disperse the crowd after some period of time and keep our community safe. I want to thank them for coming back all the time. They do a great job. The expectation of our police by the people of New South Wales is to keep our community safe, and that is what they do.
Did you see the pleasure on her face when she said how much she loves the fact that her attack dogs keep coming back over and over again? That's right in the pocket for anyone who's got a lust for power that's insatiable. And what about the old safety ticket, huh? If you ever want to get away with violence, just say it's in the name of safety and people forgive you, because safety is the thing that we all crave. So we're willing to forego our rights to get safety. Like, we're programmed for that. So they'll use that every time without fail. What I want to hone in on is her use of the words community. So let's see which community, right, these police actually belong to. Is it the same one you and I do, and how you understand community? So here I go. Let's read their actual honest job advert. Wanted: people seeking power over others. Do you experience chronic resentment, hostility, or contempt towards others? Are you driven by persistent beliefs that the world has wronged you? Have you learned to translate these feelings into words like professionalism, discipline, and public service. We offer a role where unintegrated anger and shame can be legitimized as authority. So what does it mean by authority? That you get to be the author over other people's lives. The position: authorized to stop strangers, question, intimidate, and intrude into lives. Maintain order under arbitrary rules you need not understand. Those with a clear moral compass inclined towards self-reflection need not apply. The environment: closed hierarchy valuing loyalty over truth. Harm softened by terms like procedure and policy breach. Responsibility shifted to paperwork and training gaps. The incentives: resentment redirected outward with social approval. Coercion reframed as duty. Obedience rewarded as integrity. Moral dissonance neutralized through group validation. The ideal candidate: someone fractured enough to conflate dominance with relief from self-contempt and external control with inner stability. Apply now. hateclub.com.au. Now that's a legit site, guys, so I will show you in a sec. But before I do, I want to show you this. This quote from George Orwell from his book 1984 nails what it means to not talk about Hate Club. This epitomizes it. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. If you haven't spotted it by now, or if you have and are refusing to use your voice to speak the truth, then you are siding with more misery. Remember this quote from Eric Bastiat? Well, read it again, because now you're going to see how it gets applied in real time by the criminal class. Check it out.
Then you've got these crazy laws they passed just before Christmas, this power they've given the police commissioner to declare public assemblies illegal. Again, that just sort of deauthorises people getting together for this kind of things. And the police commissioner made that declaration. That declaration is still in effect in the CBD. So that again strips attendees of legal protections and gives extra powers to the police. On top of that, they then decided to declare a major event under a separate piece of legislation for Herzog's visit, which covers most of the CBD, north of Hyde Park, and the whole of the eastern suburbs. This is a law that was designed for major sporting events and major, OPEC, ASEAN meetings, that kind of thing. Anyway, they invoked it for this one. That was what the legal challenge was actually about, and the Supreme Court ruled against the challenge. The effect of that is that it again gives the police more extreme powers, including currently in the CBD and the eastern suburbs, the police have the power to search anyone, which they don't normally have. They can move anyone on from anywhere. They don't have to have a reason. They can shut off areas. They can, they basically have extreme police powers designed to ensure that, there isn't some catastrophic thing that happens because there's lots of people or there's something really, major happening. Anyway, so that's the legal context. It meant that the crowd gathering at Town Hall Square on Monday night were not there illegally. They had the legal right to be there, but they had no protections. The police had extreme, expansive powers to interfere with their assembly. And the police, because of the major events declaration, have immunity from civil claims. So the people who got bashed can't sue the police for their injuries.
Right.
Now, I doubt that Constable Bloggs was thinking about that when he was kidney punching an old man, but nor was he thinking about the fact that he might that he didn't have immunity from criminal prosecution for assault. But all of this, radically shifted the balance of rights and responsibilities. And it's pretty clear that the New South Wales Police, either by direction or implicitly from the language that was coming from the government, felt very empowered on Monday night to do whatever they wanted. And they certainly did.
Was there anything that you saw where protesters potentially acted out of line, where they potentially attacked the police? Was there anything happening like that?
So the police response was clearly designed to incite protesters to fight back by the overwhelming application of force by police without any justification. I'm sure they were attempting to incite those responses so that they could further justify the brutality that they were laying out.
You know, I mean, in terms of sort of the factual scenario, I mean, I approach these things, you know, always sort of try to approach these things skeptically because, you know, forming judgments based on what you see on social media is a pretty fraught business and definitely not something a lawyer should do. As it happens, two of our lawyers were there. And, you know, I spoke to them at length about what they saw and experienced, and they confirmed, certainly to my satisfaction, that what we were seeing is what happened, and what the, you know, and there were a lot of journalists there too who have, including from Crikey, you know, filed really lengthy, detailed reports about what they observed, and they're very consistent. It seems very clear that, you know, the police kettled the crowd. There were conflicting directions and instructions about dispersal, and then they shut off access points that they had sort of been directing the crowds towards, and they closed them in, and there was unprovoked violence from police. And certainly the people I know who were there said it was a panicked situation. People were extremely distressed, and it was terrifying.
I just want to add that I looked into the eyes of many of these riot police that were on the front lines, and many of them were clearly enjoying the position of power that they had been given by the government, and many of them were clearly enjoying the fact that they had people that they could brutalise without really fear of retaliation.
Okay, so you've heard it from two separate sources. So what did you get out of that? Does that look like the intention was to preserve peace, or the intention was to initiate harm? Leave it to you. The last guy said what he saw in their eyes, you know, so he's just activating his intuition to be able to read what that means when you see a certain look, a look of premeditation, of working oneself up to harming. So what are the chances that was all baked in as the outcome? So I'll leave it to you to decide how that fits. And if that's the case, what does it say about the quality of these people's character that they are willing to do that? All they are looking for is permission from their masters. Who would want to have a master that gives them permission? What's that telling you? Okay, so now we're going to the website I promised you. Here we go. Okay, here we are. heyclub.com.au. We're on the homepage right now. I'm just going to rush you over to the recruitment kit just here. As you can see, you've got training curriculum and employee testimonials, so highly recommend looking at all of it. Top quality stuff here. Let's just click on here and we just scroll down and look at this. You have your very own flyer to download should you like to. Okay, so as you can see, someone's taken some initiative and they've gone and put this in a public place, just on the wall outside a supermarket where there's lots of traffic. So other places, if you're that way inclined, if you print this off and want to do something with it, use your voice, use your power, get the knowledge out. You can go onto telegraph poles. You can put on bus shelters, other notice boards. Now remember, mockery and sarcasm prepares the psyche for resistance. So the more people understand what's truly going on, the easier it's going to be for us to join together and work together as a cohesive unit. Because remember, these people are broken and we trust them to carry weapons. So what does that say about us? Anyway, now I'm going to show you where you can find the letter that you could send with this one, because the letter is actually designed to go past the egoic defense of these hate club members and hit straight into the conscience. So if you want to use your power to another level and join these two together and send them in, I'm going to show you where you can find it. All right, here we are. We're at the magnacarta1215.com website. So all you need to do is go here to where it says action, click on action now, and then start scrolling down until you get to here, where it says police moral dissonance, open letter to serving officers, and then just click on this download. I'll just quickly read what it says. This powerful open letter speaks directly to the man or woman behind the police uniform, calling out the moral dissonance between just doing my job and knowingly participating in harm. It strips away titles and procedures to expose how routine orders become coercion, extortion, and violence when measured against natural law and conscience, and invites officers to reclaim their integrity by refusing to enforce criminality disguised as duty.